Tonight, thousands of seniors at risk. Home health care providers could close down or cut services. Their backs against the wall as the state's funding runs dry.
Good evening, I'm Barbara Pinto.
And I'm Chris Bury. Tonight we take an in-depth look at the state's budget crisis and the impact it's having on Illinois' most vulnerable residents.
80,000 seniors depend on in-home care, but the state program that funds those caregivers has run out of cash.
She's just like family. She do all my grocery shopping and everything. And that means so much to have somebody that can do these things for you.
Without that help, Jane McDonald, who turns 80 this week, knows she could never live on her own. Heart and back trouble confined her to a wheelchair. Health aide Wysilla Suttle is now her arms, her legs, and so much more.
She's like a mother to me. I mean, I love her to death. I wash her back, give her baths, her hair, sweep, mop. I cook breakfast. I wash, make her bed, change her bed. Everything.
But the state's financial crisis now threatens the lifeline that Jane and 80,000 other seniors rely on to live independent lives at home. 2 weeks ago, the Department on Aging's community care program ran out of cash, 3.5 months before the end of the fiscal year. This isn't the first time the program's run out of money, but it has never happened this early.
The problem is more dire at this point to the fact that the state is anywhere from, on average, 4 to 6 months behind in paying providers.
The state now owes $173 million to home care companies, $2 million of it to Bethel New Life, the nonprofit agency providing care for Jane McDonald. This financial strain was the last straw.
The program that we're closing is our in-home services program. I think a lot of organizations will end up closing their programs for the same reasons. They cannot cash flow 5 months worth of expenses without any money coming in. For those organizations, that'll be dire. For the seniors, though, you have the state then scrambling, trying to provide them someone else who can care for them. And in some locations, that may not be possible.
A recent survey shows 37% of home care providers in the state of Illinois are just 1 month away from collapse, falling off their own fiscal cliffs if lawmakers fail to approve a supplemental infusion of cash. There are severe consequences for taxpayers and the elderly.
The senior will wind up in a nursing home that's going to cost the state 4 times what it costs with the community care program. They're going to pay for it one way or the other.
The effect of this program really is a lot bigger than people sometimes realize. It would have a whole ripple effect through the economy of these neighborhoods, not only the individual senior who is at risk for safety reasons, but also the whole family that's now going to have to disrupt their education or their employment that is their livelihood.
And as baby boomers age, the need for home care grows. Requests are up 20% statewide for next year. Bethel New Life was able to partner with Chicago Commons, a nonprofit with a larger in-home service program that can afford to wait for the state to pay. In this case, the transition preserves crucial care and hundreds of precious relationships. Jane McDonald and Wysilla Suttle worry about those who are not as fortunate.
The idea of her leaving me, I didn't know what I was going to do.
I dread to even think about it. I know it's there, but like I say, we blessed. Yeah.
We get to stay together.
We get to stay together.
In a written statement, the Illinois Department on Aging said they are doing their best to manage the program under dire financial circumstances and are working with the state legislature to secure supplemental funding to keep those services going. Joining us now to discuss this story is David Vinkler, the Associate State Director of Advocacy and Outreach for AARP Illinois. David, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
The money for this program, almost $700 million, ran out about 2 weeks ago, and we are more than 3 months before the end of the fiscal year. Talk about what's at stake here, both for the people who work as caregivers and the people who rely on those caregivers.
So basically, the program already is well behind on payments just due to the state's cash flow. This means there's no authority to spend any more money, even if they do send their bills in and the state catches up. So right now, they started the year $173 million behind carrying from the last fiscal year. And then with that, they predicated the budget on cuts that they weren't able to perform to the tune of $145 million. adding up to a $310 million deficit on a program that's, like you said, right around $700 and some million appropriated. So the providers won't have any payment to continue these services for the seniors that need them.
How did we get into this trouble? I mean, how are they allowed to keep bringing these costs forward from year to year?
Well, they started doing it in about 2003, and at that point, they only carried about 1.5 million over, and then it grew at almost an exponential level up until to date.
Even if you are a large provider, though, will anyone float you a loan if they know that there's no state money in sight and you're not going to see a payment for at least until July, and then they're 6 months behind on that, right?
Right, and that's the big problem with the appropriation running out. When there is appropriation, they don't spend it, the lenders see that the state intends to spend the money. In this case, there's no guarantee that the state will pay the money, and the lenders will tighten up on the providers.
What is the cost to the state, both personally and fiscally, of this?
Right. So the personal cost is seniors losing services. These are services that they prefer. Most of our members, 80, 90%, prefer to stay in the community, but prefer not to go into a nursing home. Now, there's also a fiscal cost to this. The senior population has grown. If you look at the 65 plus population between 2010 and 2000, it's grown by 7%. The 85 plus population has grown by 22%. So you're seeing a lot of very elderly seniors in this system, and that's growing year to year. If we don't sustain these programs, you will see them having to choose nursing home over in-home care. In-home care costs roughly $800 a month. In nursing home care is $3,000 a month. So if we don't deal with this and we don't get these programs robust and able to serve seniors, you will cause the next fiscal crisis for Illinois as more and more seniors get on the need for long-term care.
I mean, in your opinion, can the state afford not to pass the supplemental and keep these programs going?
They can't, and the state can't afford to not have these programs. We're really pushing our members to call their legislators. We even set up an 800 number. It's a hotline so that all they have to do is punch in their zip code and it'll connect them directly to the legislator. The hotline is 1-800-664-9903. We really want seniors to call their legislators, their families to call their legislators to make sure this stays in place. Now, this is not just an interest for seniors. This is an interest for taxpayers. If we do have a system that relies entirely on nursing homes, we're going to be paying 3 times the rate that we would have in the community.
Talk about how we got here. I mean, your organization has been sounding the alarm on this, and so have a number of others. Have lawmakers just not been listening? Are they preoccupied with other things? What's happening here?
Well, you see a lot of pressure to cut. A lot of legislators feel that. The governor feels that. But if we're not looking realistically at these back bills in order to do what's politically expedient and pass a budget that comes under what they perceive as the cap, and they don't think about the long term on this, we're going to create a huge budget problem. So the seniors, if they don't get these services, they won't be able to sustain this.
Now, seniors are a huge voting bloc, but this particular sector of seniors, people who are disabled, don't usually get out to vote. I'm just wondering, do you think that plays a part in all of this?
I think they see the seniors as a big voting bloc, so they are worried about that. These folks have a little more difficulty because they have to meet a standard of disability to be on the program. So they will have a little more difficulty getting out to talk to their legislators. So they really do rely on these providers, their caregivers, to really engage in this process, and their family.
What roadblocks are there now to getting the supplemental bill passed, getting a cash infusion that would keep these services going?
I think that the General Assembly is really struggling with the price tag on the whole bill. Unfortunately, it's kind of like paying your electric bill. If I don't pay it 1 month, it gets bigger the next. The longer you ignore this problem, the larger the problem becomes. So I understand their reluctance to deal with a $300 million hole in the budget, but not dealing with it is what created this problem. We need to start to deal with it.
Now, you have your tentacles out in Springfield, and you speak to a lot of these providers. How long can some of them hold on knowing that there's no payment inside?
It's really hard to tell. I mean, the size of the provider makes a difference. But the thing that we really struggle with is, as you saw, one provider get to a point where they had to close their doors. Fortunately, they were picked up by another provider. But they really resist talking about their financial struggles just because they want to protect their workers, they want to protect the folks that they serve. So a lot of times they don't go out with a bang, they just go out quietly, and legislators don't see it, and they say, well, we don't see this pain. Well, a lot of times you won't see this. Unfortunately, when it happens, people lose their services that they need, and you create a budget deficit.
How concerned are you with the population of baby boomers that are now aging and may need these services in the future?
Yeah, the baby boomer growth is just hitting us now, and those folks are just over 60. I don't think that we've felt that impact yet. Most of the impact that we felt is at 85 plus population growth, and we're going to continue to feel that. But as those folks that are 65 start reaching that level where they need care, that growth will basically double. And the state has a choice. Do we want to fund this at $3,000 a month, or do we want to fund it at $800 a month? And if we don't sustain it, it's going to be coming out of all of our pockets.
David Vinkler, we thank you for your expertise on this. I know you'll be keeping an eye on this, as will we.
Absolutely. Thank you.